What are some strategies that you would teach students of yours or things that you had to learn to be able to make those intentional?
Yeah, and this is a practice for sure, because a lot of people then think the reason why I love helping real estate agents is I always got asked the question like, hey, what do you love about being a real estate agent? And people say, man, because every day is different. I'm like, if every day is different, we have a problem, because you're not managing your days. You're just waiting for the day to give you something that's different and exciting and like, oh, it's so cool. Sure, clients and situations are different, but your days should be relatively predictable so that you have control over them. If you don't know what's happening tomorrow, we got a problem, because you don't know if your priorities are going to be the priority tomorrow. And if they're not on the calendar, I'll tell you this right now, Nathan, like they're not going to be the priority, because there's going to be an email or a text or something that comes in and you're going to make that the priority.
Well, welcome to the podcast. I have Matt Bonelli on the call here with us. He's going to tell us a little bit about his story and life. I'm super pumped to have you on the call here, Matt. Right off the bat here, right before we dive into who you are, what you're about, tell us your definition or your insights of what you believe the high performer lifestyle is. What does that look like? What's the definition? How do you apply that to your life?
Yeah, Nathan, thanks so much for having me on, man. And what a good question too, because I'm sure you get a lot of different answers on this. And, I think there's how people qualify what is high performance, and it's usually comparison against other people who are performing high. And I think you can use that as a benchmark, but really I look at it as, hey, am I performing better than I am yesterday and at the best of my abilities, right? If I want to be a high performer lifestyle, that means that I'm happy with almost everything in my life, right? Business is good, family is good, relationships are good, income is good, finances overall are good. And that means like, hey, I'm not worried about anything day to day. Sure, there's still maybe goals that we're going after, because you always got to be striving for something to push yourself to your best performance. But I'd say that if you're living happy and loving every bit of it, you're probably living a high performer life.
I love that. Tell us a little bit about your story, Matt, because you're a podcast host, you're a founder of multiple businesses, you're in the real estate scene, and you do coaching, you do business development. Like, help us understand like who you are, what you do, your success, so the audience knows who they're hearing from the other side of this.
Absolutely, man. And it's a long journey to get where I am today. But as of today, I help real estate agents primarily through our coaching organization and our podcast, Life at 10 Tenths. And we help them not only build an amazing business, but also be able to harmonize that with their life so that they're not, basically using their life to support their business actually supports their life. And along that journey of building that, there was a need for people to have some help with their marketing, specifically postcards. And so a couple of, they were actually clients of mine. I was helping them with their real estate business. We were talking through their marketing plan, and out of that conversation came Prosecco and Post, where we actually helped just take postcards completely off their plate for agents. So we custom create all the content. They don't even have to think about it. It goes out all the time for them, because it kind of fits with that mission of just helping salespeople and professionals be the best at what they're doing, instead of spending all their time doing this other stuff that ultimately takes away from their ability to earn more and live more. So that's kind of where I am now. And it was a fun journey to get there through other businesses. Some worked, some definitely did not work. And, spending some time in corporate America and all that good stuff.
Well, yeah, bring us back to this very beginning stage of like when you were understanding you're a high performer. Like I remember vividly at like 21, 22 years old, was at my dad's church as a pastor, and I got a hold of a book from John Maxwell, the Leadership Gold. And it was about like inspiration about leadership and in business and personal development. And I just had no clue that this stuff was talked about. I was just ignorant of the fact. That I've learned a lot from growing up in an amazing home and with leaders. But where was this moment for you of like, back in the day, were you selling candy bars at school? What was it that like inspired you to realize you were a little bit different, and that inspired you for the growth and trajectory that you are at right now?
Yeah, we got to talk about John Maxwell. I actually have the pleasure of joining him for a VIP lunch this Friday with a bunch of other people as well, but it's going to be really cool to talk on that. But I think for me, it was like many little moments along the way. I wish I could say, hey, this was the moment. And I did have some moments that were really cool, but then it's not like that all of a sudden created some crazy growth for me that all of a sudden went beyond. And so ultimately, I was an athlete back in high school and college, right? I ran track, did some other sports as well. And so I learned a lot of discipline through that. And in college, I actually started my first business, which think about like Uber Eats before Uber Eats existed. So we did delivery from everywhere. And running that business actually kind of highlighted, okay, maybe there's something a little bit different here, because no one was really starting and running businesses and employing other college students, at least where I was, right? And we were in the middle of central Pennsylvania, small little town running this business. But then I left that to go work on Wall Street for a big bank and did what everybody else was doing. And so I didn't really think I was anything super special. I mean, I had goals, big goals, big dreams. And it was probably while I was on Wall Street that I realized man, I don't know if I want to do this. I worked for a great company, loved my bosses, loved my coworkers. I was making decent money, but I was looking at one of my colleagues and he had young kids, and you could tell that he was felt trapped because he was making money. He was supporting his family, but now because he had those things, he's couldn't go anywhere, kind of like the golden handcuffs. Right. And so I said, I don't really want that to be my future. And so my dad actually took a risk and was kind of ending a role at a company that he had helped kind of expand and grow. And he's like, hey, I'm going to go do this thing. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, let's go do it. And we started a financial services company in 2010, the worst time to actually start something. The idea was good, but it didn't work. And so as that was failing, we found a need in another market of natural gas, and ended up turning that into a natural gas vehicle company, completely unrelated. And so there I am, I left a good job. Now I'm starting this other company and I have no money. What am I supposed to do? Well, go get my real estate license so I can make some money and be a part of this thing. And so all these little moments, right? So all those transitions kind of sparked a motivation, okay, let's learn more. But it was probably after I ran through all of my savings trying to make my first sale in real estate. And then I finally did, where I was okay, something's got to change. There's got to be something I don't know that I need to know. And that's when I actually started reading books. I had never really read books as a kid and wasn't really handed a lot of books from mentors of mine. And I learned a lot of great things from people, but I just started finding books, this book here, that book here, learning little things like John Maxwell's books, Jim Rohn, right? And I was like, hey, there are different ways to do this. And as I kind of elevated through real estate, I got the pleasure of going to a real estate training that completely changed my perception on sales. Because before it was, what people think of sales, just call and try to make a sale. And this training was all about building relationships. And it was a ninja selling installation that I went to. And I didn't know it at the time, but years later, I would end up working for that organization as a coach. And that kind of fast forwards all the way where we are today. But all those little moments I was able to stack on top of each other and then say at one point, hey, I'm going to go really do the entrepreneurial thing. Yeah, the business in college was fun and it actually was profitable. We probably should have kept with it, but now I'm actually going to go build a business or multiple businesses that I can develop into being the income stream for our family. They can be a platform for our family. And we're still, very early on in that development, Nathan. I love to say hey, I've hit it and I've figured out all the things. I'm still learning. There's still going to be moments that are going to stack up on top of those to be those moments that okay, yeah, this is the path of high performance for me. But that's kind of the journey. And I take all those little blocks. And so I guess I would want to anybody who's listening thinking you need to have this big moment that happens where all of a sudden it clicks. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes it's just a series of things that all of a sudden you put together and you add those things up and you're this is how I can do it and how I can make it happen. And I can live this life that I really want to live while still measuring up and accomplishing the things that I want to accomplish and also that other people appreciate as well.
What are some things that you teach on now, even coach on? You've built a life around learning from all these different experiences, but that played a part with the whole life. I remember the wheel of life where it looks at different aspects of your life with your family and your faith and your fitness and your business and profitability and all this stuff. And you're at this point now where you've kind of filled those buckets and you're always aware of them. And you're also trying to make sure they're at a point where they're they're filling you up and giving you joy and inspiration and excitement. What were some of the principles of things or some realizations that you had to come to really get a good grasp and a grip on these things for you to really kind of start building out?
Yeah. The first thing that I had to discover is that work-life balance sucks. It totally exists and it's horrible. Because I did achieve it at one point and I constantly felt stressed out making everything stay in balance. Because when you think of like balance and you look at the scales, right? Mm-hmm. And well, the only way for it to be in balance is if everything is equal, right? And I started watching a lot of entrepreneur content, Gary Vee, those guys. And they were always asked, like, how do you balance work and life? And most of the time they would just kind of dance around the question and never answer it. And one time I just thought, like, that doesn't exist. Yeah, totally. It's a harmony, right? And where life comes first, right? And for a lot of entrepreneurs, maybe that means their business is the bigger part. But where they choose life first, they discover, what is the life that I want to live? And then everything harmonizes in with business. Grant Cardone actually talks about this. He has a video out there where he says, I built my business to support the lifestyle that I wanted, right? And now he's an intense guy for sure, but It's like, that's the way it should work. Life should come first and we should harmonize everything together so it's like a beautiful piece of music. Because think of like a balanced piece of music. How boring would that be, right? If we want to have fun, it's got to harmonize together. And that thought, it took me years to kind of really fully develop that thought and understand what that meant. And I'm probably still even learning what that means for me, but everybody can craft that on their own. Whereas we can look at a calendar or look at something and be like, cool, you got balance, but are you having fun? So
I remember there's different people that talk about this, but it's like what you focus on, what you manage is always like what you put your attention on. And each of these things that you're trying to harmonize, which I love the statement with, do you have to come up with some dashboard or some metric or set aside calendar time or like weekly, like family time where you're kind of assessing things or planning your life around making sure those things are in line? What are some strategies that you would teach students of yours or things that you had to learn to be able to make those intentional?
Yeah. And this is a practice for sure, because a lot of people then think the reason why I love helping real estate agents is I always got asked the question like, hey, what do you love about being a real estate agent? And people say, man, because every day is different. I'm like, if every day is different, we have a problem because you're not managing your days. You're just waiting for the day to give you something that's different and exciting and like, oh, it's so cool. Sure, clients and situations are different, but your days should be relatively predictable, so that you have control over them. If you don't know what's happening tomorrow, we got a problem because you don't know if your priorities are going to be the priority tomorrow. And if they're not on the calendar, I'll tell you this right now, Nathan, like they're not going to be the priority because there's going to be an email or a text or something that comes in and you're going to make that the priority instead of your life. So yeah, if you want to start to build out that harmony, just like music doesn't necessarily happen by accident, right? You have to plan it out. You have to think ahead. You have to also learn from how you operate your life so that you know what to do when things do happen, because nothing's ever going to be completely perfect. You can build out the best calendar in the world. Something's going to happen. Kids are sick at school. Got to go pick them up. Client calls and says, house is on fire. Well, nothing you can do there, I guess, except call the fire department. But like, oh gosh, we're not going to close today. Okay, we have to adjust. But if you already have your priorities identified, you're going to be able to massage that calendar so much better. And this does include family time. I got my workout in the morning on my calendar, which is usually pretty easy to like follow because you just wake up and do the morning routine. But even at night, I block off family time so that it just reminds me, like, don't put appointments there, right? Unless there's something important that you're going to do that's worth it and you have the discussion with family and you come to kind of a conclusion on how you're going to manage that. But if you fill up the calendar, dead space on the calendar is a recipe for letting somebody else come in and control it. Even if you want to do nothing, then block out a stop and just say, I'm doing nothing for these 3 hours. That'll give you the freedom to make sure that nothing else gets put in there.
And when I started my entrepreneurship journey, it wasn't always easy. Like I was a creative in an open space and I was like, hey, I could do whatever I want. But realizing, like you're talking about right now, it's like you have to be very intentional about setting aside specific things because you're not just being a specialist in a job anymore. You're running a business and you're wearing tons of different hats.
Yeah.
I know I learned the hard way many, many times, and entrepreneurs and well-known business owners that listen to this for inspiration from stories. What are some big principles or priorities that you've really had to anchor in? It sounds like fitness, sounds like your family time is important. And
Yeah.
It sounds like you kind of take those as priorities, schedule those out, and then build your business around it. Not just you build your personal life in front, and then you build your business around your personal life. It sounds like.
Yeah. And I think that's important. Now, obviously, if you want your personal life to be like, hey, I'm just going to like enjoy my time every single day of the week and never work. It's like, okay, we have to obviously make some choices. I don't like to call them sacrifices because I think the choices we make actually serve us in the long run. And so you don't have to sacrifice anything for the life you want. You just have to choose today what you want to be tomorrow. And so I would say you start with that longer term outlook. Like, how do I want to be in 5 or 10 years so that you can then identify the priorities for today? And if say, okay, I want to have an enduring business, well, I need to then make sure I have an endurance mind and an endurance body. Because sure, for the short term, you can just say, hey, I'm just going to grind out work. I'm just going to put my head down and work. And when I was younger, and for young guys, like that can work because you are young and you have that extra energy. You still have some hormones working in your favor. But at some point, you're going to be exhausted and tired and broken. And then you're going to have to rebuild. But if you take care of yourself along the entire way, if you eat right, if you sleep, if you exercise, if you make sure you're not sitting in that chair all day, you're going to have more endurance to then get through this, marathon of business. And even if that is the marathon of doing what you need to do outside of your 9 to 5, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're going to be exhausted after that job and you're not going to be able to build the dream that you want. So I always prioritize my self-care, and that includes your mindset as well, which can be that family time and whatnot. And if it's on the calendar, it's coming. You don't need to take that extra Netflix show or whatnot because you already know, hey, I got my best things that I want to do on the calendar. I don't need to take time away from those by missing out on this extra sleep that's going to drain my energy. And so then the rest will fall into place, in between the waking hours there.
How do you balance your own ambitions as an entrepreneur by building out a schedule for yourself, but also not leaving your family in the wake of your ambition?
Yeah.
How much of that do you plan with your spouse? Because I'm personally just being candid with you, and all the hearers on this for learning purposes is like you're trying to like coordinate and be intentional with your wife's schedule and her family and with our kids and with our future and the holidays. How do you bake that into your schedule now that you're like assessing that and you're kind of working through it? How do you go about that?
It's a good question. And I will say this is the one area that I have a lot of knowledge. The application is terrible.
It's a practice, like you're saying, that I think many of us are trying to work through for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and like, hey, it's good to know that like we know a lot of stuff. Like my wife and I should sit down for a weekly meeting every week and like kind of see what's going on. But pretty much the way we handle it's like we kind of just talk as we go. The one, we do make decisions about like, how do we want to manage things, right? And a lot of times you'll hear people say, well, okay, I just need a spouse that's going to support everything that I want to do. And listen, I would love to work, on creative and business endeavors more than I do during the day. But my wife also has some goals for her career, and she doesn't want to take, these years where, she could just be a mom and I could also just be a dad. Because she knows that in 15 years, she wants to make sure she's still she designs hotels. That's what she does.
Very cool.
It's like, I don't want to leave that space. I want to be there and build something and inspire our girls too. And by the grace of God, she also gets to work at home a lot of the time too. So I was like, all right, well, you're going to have a little bit more structure to your day. So I'll just figure out how to adjust my day so that I can take the girls to school and pick them up so that if you have a late meeting, and I have that flexibility, and I thank God for that too. And so we just kind of do it as we go, Nathan. I wish I had I know the things, and I know a lot of people are sitting there like, oh man, he doesn't have that figured out. It's like, I know, but no, we don't have it figured out in practice. And I think that's putting in the reps sometimes on that. And as you know, from having young kids, sometimes that can get a little bit in the way because you let those things get the best of you too. It's like, well, we got a 5 and a 2-year-old, and that's just kind of the way it is. And it's not the way it is. You just have to figure out what works best for you.
And sometimes at those early ages, to give us a break here, is that we're trying to figure out how to survive in the craziness of little kids that don't quite understand a whole lot quite yet, where they're still adapting to things. And so
Yeah.
I think there's seasonality with everything that allows us to kind of build that back up to really kind of plan and be strategic. And we're always evolving into better people that are always trying to do their best, which is why we're high performers and we don't expect a status quo. We're always kind of refining our craft and the way we live our life, which is always inspiring.
It is. And I think one important element, whether you have the structure figured out or not, is making sure that you're talking about the vision as much as you can, right? And my wife is the hardest person to sell things to. And I just constantly try to sell her and keep selling her on the vision. Like, hey, this is like when we, a few months ago when I was like, okay, we're going to go start a whole new company. She's like, but you have already a successful podcast. Like you're doing well there. Why don't you, kind of figure out how to work this out with them? And it's like, well, no, we really want to grow this. And it was a hard sell. And I was like, well, and at some point it's like, hey, I'm going to do this. She's like, all right. She's like, I may not agree with it right now, but now you got to go prove it to me as well. And cool. Awesome. Like pressure's on, but in a loving way. And I think that's also a way you want to make sure that there is clear communication. I think that's whether you're running the schedule, running the playbook or whatever it is, as long as you're communicating in whatever you have so that you guys aren't misaligned, that's probably one of the most important things. There's going to be bumps in the road in every journey. If there isn't, maybe we're not breaking enough stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's transition with talking about your coaching business with real estate. There's definitely high performance of habits and things that you build in with that. What are some of the strategies or frameworks or things that you teach your coaching companies that maybe our listeners can really kind of take hold of and kind of apply it to their own businesses? What are some of those principles or frameworks or teachings that you teach there that would help people here?
Well, we first start that with that real estate, and every business by this way for the matter is a relationship-based business. And so whereas a lot of businesses will start with kind of top of funnel thought processes, how do I just get leads in the door? We look at, okay, who's already here? Who's our relationships? Who do we have? Who can we build stronger relationships with? Because particularly with real estate, it's not hey, I got this really cool thing over here and I can figure out a pain point that you have that maybe this will solve. Real estate is a very, very big decision and people don't make it just like that. So if you have relationships, and this is kind of my philosophy is, because a lot of salespeople in the real estate space will like, how do I find leads? How do I get leads? And a lot of people will purchase leads, which I don't think you need to do. And a lot of people don't believe that, but some people do. And I say, every lead, traditional lead that comes in on real estate, somebody clicks on a button for a stranger real estate agent they don't know, is a lost relationship, right? I mean, there's 1.6 million realtors in the United States. Now, that's a lot. And yes, last year there was about 4 million home sales, right? Many of those people found a stranger real estate agent to do a deal with. And that's a shame. It's like, look at all those lost relationships that were there. And so if we start by securing our relationships and build trust with our people, the business is going to flow to us. Now, then you got to build a discipline and a routine of high frequency communication, high value communication, but it doesn't have to be about real estate. Or if you're a restaurateur or if you're a software salesperson, like you don't have to talk about your stuff all the time. That's why you develop marketing channels so that people know who you are and what you do. Then you focus on the personal relationships. And it's amazing what happens to the business. That's how you start to be able to then harmonize everything, because you might be selling your best friend's house. Like you're on the mountain, you're going mountain biking one day, and the next day you're showing houses together, right? And that's the beauty of a business like that, or any business. Whereas if you build those relationships, you can do business with your friends. I don't like the phrase like, oh, don't mix, friendships and business. It's like, that's for people who don't believe in what they do for business and they don't believe that they can perform for their friends. That's why they don't want to mix it, because they know they're not doing something that's at a level, or they're not performing at the level that they could.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where we start, Nathan.
Amazing. What are and then you have your marketing company that also aligns with that same industry, and then you have a podcast as well. How does that all work hand in hand for you? Because are you focused more on like the real estate coaching, or you also do your real estate by yourself too, where you're practicing what you're preaching in a way too? How do you balance all of those things?
Yeah, so I mean, I try to eat my own cooking as much as I can, right? Like I mail my postcards that we do through Prosecco and Post, and I do engage in the activities that I coach people on, but I don't actually list and sell real estate anymore. I have a license, but I don't perform in it, only because if I'm dedicating my time to the agents and to the community that we're advising and coaching, and also our clients on the marketing side, I wouldn't be able to fit into that structure. We talked about, plan out that schedule. I know I wouldn't be able to be at my best as an agent. And so I decided that's not an area that I'm going to play in for now anyway. I mean, that can all change and grow as we grow these businesses and you bring on more people to handle more things. Like there could be an opportunity to build out a team or something at some point, but it's also not my passion. I mean, I love houses. I had a lot of fun selling real estate when I did, but I love helping people grow from personally and professionally and helping businesses grow. And this is where I get to do that. Whereas like I could have fun selling real estate, but it wouldn't be a passion of mine. And so I know there's people who are passionate about it. I'd rather them do the business because it's going to be a much better client experience. So focus on running these two organizations right now and having a heck of a lot of fun with my kids. Yeah. And then the podcast is, our name brand Life at 10 Tenths for the coaching organization. And that's where my co-founder Garrett Fry and I get to banter about everything. We do have a real estate slant, but we talk a lot about performance. We talk a lot about motivation. We talk a lot about mindset because that's the foundation of almost any business, particularly for entrepreneurs. And we go around all that stuff. So I think there's a lot of value there for everyone.
There's a lot of people working in their business. And I think, especially real estate people or other people that are starting out on the entrepreneurship journey, there's the creative edge and the excitement of like starting something, right? And they end up getting trapped in their own business because they're working in it so much. And there's constraints there that we've touched on, which is lead generation, right? They're like, they don't have enough or they have too much, and then they have too many things going on, and then it becomes the bottleneck and constraint for them. What are some things that you've learned or things that maybe you teach to help people get out of that commodity mindset, the commodity framework of that they're doing, to really kind of be a business owner, not being in it as much, but working on it and really kind of building teams and leadership things that you've developed? And you're going to John Maxwell thing, and that's what he is known for with leadership. What are some of those things that you help people through and coach up?
Yeah, through personal experience and helping others. I mean, it starts right there with the mindset. Like first we have to recognize that, okay, one, no one's ever going to do anything like you, right? So yes, you're always going to be the best at doing things that you do. That doesn't mean that somebody else can't do something the best at that they can do it. And particularly when it comes to business, a lot of times we focus on in the business activities, the things that are, operating the business as what people see as value. And we have to detach from that. And it's a tough mindset to get into. I see this with real estate agents. They'll want to expand, so they'll hire a buyer's agent. They'll hire another real estate agent. It's like, but you love that. Like that's what you love, is connecting with people, putting together contracts and negotiating. Why would you go outsource that instead of outsourcing your paperwork or your marketing or all of these things that your clients never see the operations of, that you don't even really enjoy doing? Now, I do see some agents who are like, but I love taking photos. I'm like, then maybe you should be a photographer instead of a real estate agent. And so you might be able to identify your passion that way. And it's tough. I mean, because you also look at cash flow. I can't afford to. And yeah, maybe you can't at some point. And so you got to work. I heard Ed Milet say this. I think it was Ed Milet. Maybe it was somebody else. It's like, well, sometimes you got to work both jobs until one job can pay for the other job. And then you hire that one out, and then you work another job to stack on top of that. And yes, that gets into, well, then how do you fit life in? You got to be strategic about this. You need to work. The smart work is the hard work, by the way, right? Yeah. The hard things are the smart things to do, which are probably going to take less time and produce more results for you. If you look at anybody's business, and I'm sure, Nathan, you've been there, I've been there, and there's certain things in my business that I'm in there on right now where the things that are taking up most of your time, you could probably hire somebody for a small fee, or just change the way you do it to shrink it by 50% of the time, or just not even do it. And you can go spend way more time on things that are producing way more money for you. and way more results for your people and your clients. And that's a hard thing to identify. I mean, Dan Martell teaches the time audit, right? The time and energy audit. That's a great thing to do. Just watch your days. Where are you productive? Where's your energy high? And where are you not making money and your energy is low? And outsource or offload or delete that stuff, and focus on the things that bring you energy and put money in your pocket too.
As being an entrepreneur and grinding away so many times, has there been like different outlets that you have for you to feel like you're relaxed? You have like hobbies. Having young kids, it's not always easy to balance everything. Is there some specific outlets that you personally have found that's been helpful for you to kind of do? You talked about mountain biking. Is there other habits or things that you build in and anchor in that's helpful for you to kind of downshift a little bit to kind of have a clear mind?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's mostly exercise related, and partly because I went through a period where I wasn't really exercising and it was in a horrible headspace. My mindset wasn't good. I felt like garbage. And then I ended up herniating a disc in my back, and that was really bad. I was like, man, I am just falling apart. And so, getting that space to exercise. I mean, if I look at longer periods of time, I love going down to the beach and just like hanging out and taking days completely unplugged, which is hard to do as an entrepreneur. We think we can't do it. And if you set up the structure in the right way, whether you have support or not, you can definitely get away for at least a day. And so I like to take a day and just go spend it, whether if it's with family or with friends, go to the beach. I would love to get into the mountains more than we do now that our girls are getting a little older, probably be able to drive upstate and get in there, and do some fun stuff up there. That's kind of what I do now to decompress. During the day though, fitness, reading books is good for me. And then, there's just certain reality TV shows, real estate reality TV, and some of these other goofy shows that are out there on Apple and Netflix and stuff. My wife and I love Outer Banks. So like, that's kind of a little escape every now and then too. I mean, just to kind of just tune the mind to something else, Yeah.
Yeah. I've been doing massages once a week, and that's been just helpful time to kind of take the hour or so and just kind of work out all that tension and stress that comes from being an entrepreneur. And I heard Patrick Bet-David say that, and I started to implement. I definitely see that that's super helpful with just like little things that you can tweak in your health and your mind that allows you to have that alignment and clear creativity as an entrepreneur. But
so you just take like a full body massage just once a week. You go, dude, that's awesome. I like that idea. I could use one of those.
Yeah, I heard Patrick Bet-David say that once, and I was like, I'm going to do that. It's doctor prescription. Honey, we got to do it. That type of thing. And it's been great. And you have your assistant kind of coordinate that with your schedule, and I just show up, right? Those are the awesome experiences with everything like that. But here's a random one for you, Matt. Is there something that you carry, you wear, you do, you have, like, what's your everyday carry that's maybe something that's unique that other people don't? Do you have anything like that you bring with you, you carry or you wear or anything like that?
Man, I mean, I'm usually here in my house a lot of the times. Water is like my thing. After I did 75 hard for the first time back when Andy Frisella first did it, I was like, that was the year that my daughter was born, and I was like, I need something to reset me. And I never recognized how much water changed my energy throughout the day. And so it's not really novel or unique, but I typically always have water on or near me because that is like my energy drink now. I mean, I still have coffee and all that good stuff too, but water is my performance drug for sure.
That's good. My wife gets on me all the time because I'm carrying like 2 or 3 different things. My water, you got your coffee, or you got your, smoothie, or you got your shake, right? And especially, taking priority with fitness like you and I do, you have batches of stuff if you go to and fro from, your sunglass, your wallet, your phone, your keys. Then you got like your meal prep, and your shakes and all sorts of stuff. So it starts packing up where it's like you got some go bags that you go to and from. But yeah, that's very interesting, man. Water is definitely a priority. Most of the time people don't drink enough. So totally
I'll say for entrepreneurs, water, like the power of water, because here's the thing, like if you want to be high performance, like the smallest bit of dehydration, your cognitive function starts to decline, right? And now we can all still perform at that, right? We all do. We've gone through hard things and everything, and you get adrenaline and things to compensate. But just like every day, like when your heart rate's normal and you're sitting there trying to make a decision on whether to send the next email or make the next phone call, if you're a little bit dehydrated, you're probably gonna be like, no, I'll just do it tomorrow, right? But if you're hydrated and you're clear, you're going to do that small little extra bit that's going to produce results, particularly if you stack it consistently day over day. And it's, I've seen it with people that I work with too. Like when they're dehydrated and they come to a coaching call, like I can tell, like their energy's down. I'm like, go get some water. Like, let's just kind of, and it immediately comes back and like we get clear and we're able to take better action. And think about it, if you stack those days like that, that little bit of performance can make a whole big difference. And so entrepreneurs definitely stay hydrated because you make better decisions.
Love that. Well, Matt, I appreciate you being on and sharing your insights about some of these techniques that you've learned and you've shared here and what you've coached people on. Where can people follow you, connect with you further? I'll put all the links down below. But where can they connect with you further?
Yeah, man, absolutely. They can find me on Instagram, Matthew J. It's my middle initial, Bonelli. And if you Google that, you'll also find some stuff. You'll also find the Silver Fox, the bassist for the Bee Gees, happens to share the same name. He must be so grateful that he has the same name as me.
That's right.
I'm grateful that I share it with him. So, but go find me on Instagram, Matthew J. Bonelli, and shoot me a DM that says Nathan on it. And I'll drop you guys some info on what we do and even give you a free little marketing checklist or whatever. I got all these little handouts that might help you. So you just DM me Nathan and a challenge you have, and I got something for you.
Amazing. I'll link that down below. Well, again, thank you guys for listening in and tuning in. Until next time, we will talk about more about high performance and the cutting edge of things. Matt, great to have you on, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Dude, pleasure, Nathan. Thank you for having me, man.